Our first presenter, Lana is an empathetic young woman who enjoys running, reading, and badminton. She is confident, positive, and inspirational, and we are excited to welcome her as our first speaker with her story, The Power Your Voice Holds.
10 years ago, I stepped off a plane and into a brand new country. Everything had changed, from my home to my school to my friends. But I wasn't afraid. I felt quite the opposite, actually. I had this desire to know everything and ask everything and question everything. And so I did. I loved being a part of something, even if it was small. I never worried about how I sounded or what I said or what other people thought, because I never had to. I was just me, and me was enough. I remember walking into my second grade classroom. Well, actually, it was a grade 1-2 split. I had this amazing teacher who I loved. Shout out to Miss Soccer, wherever she is. And yeah, Soccer was her actual last name. And of course, being a second grader in a split class meant that I was technically the oldest. So, I took it upon myself to help anyone and everyone I could. From teachers to friends to classmates, I was on it. Now, some would say that's called being a teacher's pet, but I didn't care. I was involved, and that was all that mattered to me. But somewhere between then and now, that changed. I remember when I moved again, out of my tiny town of like 3,000 people to this city. And you thought Lloyd was small. Walking into my third grade classroom was different. I was surrounded by all these people who were practically birthed together. I didn't want to speak. I didn't want to participate. And it was just easier for me to stay quiet than to ever stand out. And you know, sometimes I think this was because I moved. But the more I think about it, the more I disagree. I think this was all built up from complete strangers I never saw again. You know, a comment here or a look there, then a label that stuck longer than it should have. Constantly getting told to stop being so loud and stop being so much and stop being such a tryhard. And at first, I didn't let it bother me. Until it did. I started to question everything. I second-guessed every answer I knew, questioned every thought in my head. Raising my hand wasn't even natural anymore, but this risky gamble I just couldn't afford. But I was still the same person. I was still me. I had the same thoughts, the same ideas, the same answers. I just didn't let others hear it anymore. And that became my new normal, questioning every tiny thing. I mean, even sneezing was second-guessed. How long could I possibly hold a sneeze? I was in this constant cycle of how should I say this, and what should I say, and should I even say that? And I know I'm not the only one who has felt this way. A lot of people do. Because we're so quick to mistake someone's confidence as obnoxiousness, and speaking up as standing out from the crowd. But why do we make ourselves smaller? To fit in? Or to feel included? To get rid of this anxiety hanging over us? We can be so much more. Then high school came. New people, new energy, and a brand new start. But of course, I was still the same. Always hesitant, thinking twice before I spoke. The same voice in my head would tell me, what if this and what if that? And the possibilities were just endless. But at some point, I realized I don't want to be this way. I looked in the mirror and saw this shy, hesitant person that I didn't even recognize, and I hated that. It wasn't the people in high school who changed me, but the way that I saw myself in high school that did. I wanted to speak without hesitation and to exist without holding myself back. And I wanted to feel the way I once did, not because others expected to see my spark, but because I knew I had one, and it was bright. So I started small. I would answer a question here and share an opinion there, say something, even if I doubted myself. And it was hard. It was no longer this natural part of my life, but I kept on going. Because my voice isn't something I need to earn. It's something I already have. So it began with branching out, of course, talking to more people and meeting new friends, finding people who have the same similar interests as me. And for the most part, it worked, because most of them are here showing their support. Then I really decided to step out of my comfort zone, and I decided to stage manage a musical with absolutely no musical theater knowledge. Real smart of me. And if you don't know what stage managing is, like I didn't, it's basically bossing around the entire backstage world. And finally, I stand here today in front of I don't even know how many people, telling you all how I was holding back a sneeze because what if someone thought something? Because at some point, I realized that I don't want to be the person who holds myself back. And I don't want to shrink back into someone's shadow. I want to be the person who speaks and shares and shows up, even when it's not perfect. Because 10 years ago, I stepped off a plane and into a brand new country with no fear at all. And somewhere along the way, that fear was gained. But now I want nothing more than to let it go. And so I will, one small step at a time.